Think that bright red steak sitting so perfectly under the glowing fluorescent lights of your local grocery store is actually fresh? Think again. What if I told you that across the United States, major supermarket chains are quietly using a highly sophisticated hidden chemical process designed to keep meat looking artificially fresh for weeks on end, even when the organic tissue itself has already begun the natural process of rotting? Today, we are pulling back the heavy curtain on the multi-billion-dollar American meat industry to expose the dark, calculated secrets of big retail networks, showing you exactly how these corporate monopolies are compromising your family's health, manipulating your psychological buying triggers, and silently draining your hard-earned wallet at the checkout counter every single week. Stop buying supermarket meat blindly, because once you understand the cold, hidden math and the industrial deceptions happening behind the butcher counter, you will never look at a standard grocery store aisle the same way again. Here is the absolute truth that the agricultural elites and retail conglomerates chose to bury deep from the American consumer. To understand exactly how this massive optical illusion works, we have to analyze the very air inside those neat, plastic-wrapped styrofoam meat trays that fill the shelves of every major supermarket from coast to coast. Walk into any standard commercial grocery chain, and your eyes are immediately drawn to a sea of vibrant, bright, cherry-red beef, a specific visual cue that our human biology instinctively associates with optimal health, high nutrition, and absolute freshness. However, in the realm of modern, high-volume industrial food distribution, that pristine red color is rarely the result of a fresh cut. Instead, it is the artificial byproduct of a highly calculated technique known as modified atmosphere packaging, or MAP. In a standard packaging plant controlled by massive corporate meat packers, the natural atmospheric oxygen inside the meat container is completely vacuumed out and replaced with a proprietary, pressurized cocktail of purified gases. This gas mixture routinely includes low, federally approved concentrations of carbon monoxide gas, which performs a specific, unsettling chemical reaction directly on the surface of the meat tissue. When carbon monoxide molecules make contact with the natural protein called myoglobin inside the muscle tissue of the meat, it forms a highly stable chemical compound known as carboxymyoglobin. This specific chemical bond locks the outer layer of the meat into a fixed, chemically forced bright red state that physically prevents the meat from turning brown, gray, or oxidizing naturally when exposed to time or ambient air. The true danger of this industrial process lies in the complete elimination of a consumer's natural defense mechanisms, because under normal circumstances, atmospheric oxygen causes older meat to turn a dull brown color, indicating to the human eye that bacteria are growing and the product is spoiling. By artificially locking the tissue into a permanent state of forced cosmetic perfection, a steak can sit on a supermarket shelf for 20, 30, or even 40 days, loaded with escalating levels of invisible spoilage bacteria, while maintaining the exact same flawless, bright red appearance as a piece of meat butchered 5 minutes ago. The industrial meat lobby continuously defends this practice by claiming it is entirely safe for human consumption and serves a vital economic purpose by reducing artificial food waste and lowering store operating costs. However, consumer advocacy groups and independent food scientists strongly argue that this process is fundamentally deceptive, as it strips the average American shopper of their primary sensory tool for identifying decaying food, transforming the simple act of buying dinner into a high-stakes guessing game. Protecting your household from this widespread corporate deception requires you to train your eyes to look far beyond the deceptive cosmetic red color and look for the subtle structural flaws that gassed meat always betrays. When meat is subjected to modified atmosphere packaging and long periods of artificial preservation, the cellular walls of the muscle tissue slowly begin to break down over time, causing the internal moisture and natural cellular juices to leak out into the container. To spot a package of gassed, older meat that is masquerading as a fresh cut, you must carefully inspect the edges of the tray and look beneath the plastic wrap for an excessive pooling of a thin, sour, purplish-pink liquid, or check the synthetic absorbent pad underneath the meat to see if it is completely saturated with fluid. Truly fresh, ungassed beef that has been cut from a naturally raised animal will typically exhibit a deeper, slightly darker, purplish-red hue when it is first sliced, only turning a natural cherry red after it sits in raw, open atmospheric air for several minutes to breathe. Furthermore, if you look closely at a grocery store shelf and notice that every single package of ground beef or ribeye looks absolutely identical in its vibrant, uniform, plastic-like coloration across 50 different trays, you are looking at a highly processed, chemically managed corporate layout rather than real, unadulterated agriculture. The deep layer of corporate deception within the American food supply chain extends far beyond surface aesthetics and optical illusions, hitting consumers directly in their household finances during a time of historic economic pressure. Over the past several years, families across the United States have faced a brutal, compounding reality at the grocery checkout line as meat prices have aggressively climbed by an astronomical 20 to 30% across almost every major metropolitan region. Yet, as the retail price tag continues its relentless upward march, the actual quality, nutritional density, and integrity of the meat available to the public have steadily and systematically plummeted to historic lows. This economic anomaly is driven by the extreme consolidation of the American agricultural market, where a massive four-company monopoly controls over 85% of all beef processing nationwide, allowing them to dictate artificial price floors while squeezing out independent local ranchers. To maximize their quarterly profit margins and offset rising corporate distribution costs, these megacorporations rely heavily on hyper-industrialized, high-density feedlots, where cattle are raised in unnatural, highly stressed environments and routinely pumped with growth hormones to accelerate weight gain, along with preventive antibiotics, just to survive long enough for slaughter. To further inflate their profit margins at your direct expense, many industrial processing facilities utilize a highly controversial technique known as moisture enhancement, plumping up the physical weight of the meat before it is weighed and priced. This industrial process involves using automated machinery to inject raw muscle tissue with high-pressured lines of saltwater brines, chemical tenderizers, and sodium phosphates, artificially increasing the total package weight by up to 15%. When you buy a commercial supermarket steak, a significant portion of that premium price per pound is actually going toward buying cheap tap water and industrial binding chemicals that have been trapped inside the meat fibers. The immediate consequence of this process becomes glaringly obvious the moment you attempt to cook the meat at home, as the high heat causes the chemical water to rapidly leak out into your pan, boiling the steak in its own juices instead of creating a natural, rich, caramelized sear. You are left with a piece of meat that shrinks drastically in physical size, lacks natural flavor, and delivers a highly degraded nutritional profile, proving that big retail networks are charging American consumers premium prices for an altered, water-weighted industrial product. Fortunately, a quiet but powerful structural revolution is taking place across the American landscape as millions of conscious households refuse to participate in the commercial supermarket monopoly any longer. Consumers from Texas to Ohio are actively bypassing the corporate supply chains entirely and turning their attention toward the rapidly growing movement of local sourcing, community-supported agriculture, and direct-to-farm procurement. By establishing a direct economic relationship with independent local ranchers, traditional butchers, and sustainable homesteads, American families are completely eliminating the corporate middlemen who control the gassing plants and distribution hubs. This pivot allows everyday citizens to secure high-quality, ethically raised meat that has never been subjected to chemical preservation, artificial color enhancements, or water injection processes. More importantly, investing your grocery budget into local agriculture ensures that your money directly supports independent American farmers who practice rotational grazing, prioritize animal welfare, and focus on soil health, keeping your hard-earned capital within your local rural economy rather than sending it to a distant corporate boardroom. The absolute gold standard for breaking away from the industrial food trap while simultaneously slashing your annual grocery bill is a rapidly accelerating community trend known as cow sharing, or buying a bulk locker meat order. In this highly efficient economic model, multiple families or individuals pool their financial resources together to buy a whole, half, or quarter share of a live animal directly from a local independent cattle rancher. While the initial upfront cost requires a conscious, planned allocation of your monthly household budget, the long-term mathematical savings are absolutely staggering when compared to weekly supermarket retail prices. When you buy meat in bulk directly from the pasture, the entire processing cost is calculated at a flat, uniform rate per pound based on the hanging weight of the animal, completely bypassing the artificial retail markups that big grocery chains place on individual premium cuts. This means that every single pound of meat you bring home, ranging from premium pasture-raised ribeyes, New York strips, and tenderloins down to clean, nutrient-dense ground beef and brisket, breaks down to the exact same low, highly affordable baseline cost per pound. The practical logistics of transitioning your home to a direct-to-farm bulk sourcing model are incredibly straightforward and highly sustainable for any average working American household. A standard, highly energy-efficient, compact chest freezer costing less than $200 can easily store a full quarter share of beef, providing a typical family of 4 with an uninterrupted supply of pristine, high-protein food for 6 to 8 months. This strategy completely insulates your household budget from the unpredictable price spikes, artificial shortages, and corporate gouging that routinely plague modern commercial grocery stores, giving you total peace of mind every time you open your freezer. You are no longer relying on a complex, fragile global supply chain that treats food as a speculative financial asset. Instead, you are taking control of your own household food security with verified, untampered nutrition straight from the American soil. It is time to stop letting massive retail conglomerates dictate the health of your family, trick your visual senses with industrial gases, and overcharge you for waterlogged meat that lacks integrity. By stepping out of the commercial supermarket trap, upgrading your consumer awareness, and choosing real, transparent local alternatives, you can reclaim the absolute sovereignty of the American kitchen, protect your hard-earned dollars, and build a healthier, self-reliant future for the next generation. Leave a comment below with your home state, and let's map out the best local farm alternatives together. Hit that subscribe button right now to unlock the next era of truth. See you in the next video.